Bishop, so many people are anxious to hear part three of your ongoing series about China and its role in this New World Order agenda. How are you today, Bishop?
I am doing great, my friend. Excited. These are some powerful days that are going on right now, not only in our great nation, but around the world. And looking forward to unpacking this China, the contagion of global manipulation.
Absolutely. And you know, Bishop, before we get into part three, you're in Queens, New York, aren't you? Is that correct? I hope I'm not revealing too much.
No, in Manhattan.
Oh, you are in Manhattan. Okay.
Yes.
But wasn't there a radio station you were dealing with in Queens or something like that? Or the restaurant where you got poisoned was in Queens?
The restaurant was in Queens. Yes, sir.
Got it. So are you in touch with any people in Queens, any of your congregation or anybody that you know perhaps? We're just hearing so much information from Elmhurst specifically that it's this epicenter. We've also heard Maimonides Hospital in Brooklyn. I don't know if you saw the episode the other day, Bishop, but I was walking down the street here in Manhattan and some guy recognized me apparently from behind across the street. And he said, "Hey, you're the guy from YouTube." But I asked him what the name of the show was, and he didn't know. And I asked him what my name was, and he didn't know. And I found that strange. He said he's kept awake by sirens outside Maimonides Hospital. I don't know. Have you heard
Wow.
anything?
No, I've been watching some of your walk-arounds around the city, which are really getting a lot of hits with your viewers. But I know a lot of pastors in the Elmhurst area and throughout the borough of Queens. So a lot of the churches that I know, they're closed down because of this COVID-19 pandemic. So, we're dealing with some crazy, crazy people, and we're in the midst of a crisis where I think I'm only 57 years old, Jason. I have never seen anything, at least not on this global level. And but
Right.
I think that the American people we're going to come out on the winning side, without a doubt.
I, I agree with you, Bishop. And just to clarify what you said there, so your colleagues that you know in Queens whose churches and things are closed, they're not really able to accurately gauge the situation because, like everybody else, they're just locked in their house, right?
Yeah, they're being told to stay in their house, and according to a lot of my friends in the ministry and colleagues, that there's a 8 p.m. curfew in Queens. Now, I don't know if there's a
Whoa.
curfew in Bronx or the other provinces throughout the metropolitan area of New York City, but they're being told there's an 8 p.m. curfew. How true that is, I don't know, but I can only go by what they're saying.
Wow. That's amazing. Curfews and all kinds of things. You know, Bishop, I'm going to have to look a little bit more closely about what is not being programmed correctly here for the simulcast on your Global Spiritual Revolution YouTube channel, but for some reason, we'll have to post that after the show. I do want to let our viewers know that they can listen to your radio show. People can go to liferadionj.com/Gaiters and they can listen to you there. It's also on 92.9 FM. And people can support the Bishop's Global Spiritual Revolution by going to paypal.me/GSRR Media Group. And it's very important that viewers of Crowdsource the Truth support my co-hosts. Now more than ever, I don't know if you got to see, Bishop, but yesterday YouTube issued a letter to a bunch of alternative media sites, including Crowdsource the Truth 2, stripping away any opportunity for monetization. So the only way that this information can continue to come forward is if viewers of Crowdsource the Truth and people who listen to Bishop Gaiters become sponsors of the show. This is independent media sponsored by independent sponsors. It's not about putting information behind a paywall. We see now, at the most critical time, what happens when this information is allegedly free. And I'm making air quotes as I say that, Bishop, because it's not free. It's YouTube taking control over your message, over my message, and lulling the audience into a sense of complacency where they perceive it as being free, but actually YouTube is robbing their opportunity to get at true and factual information. So I hope that people will become sponsors either on subscribestar.com/crowdsourcethetruth, patreon.com/crowdsourcethetruth, and of course at paypal.me/GSRR Media Group. Bishop, what have you prepared for us today?
This is part 3, Jason, of our ongoing series that we've been discussing for the past 2 weeks, entitled China, the Contagion of Global Manipulation. Again, China, the Contagion of Global Manipulation. Now, I want to kind of go back from last week and where we left off. We talked about this Event 201. And I
Yes.
found out more of the background of some of these key players that we're going to get into today. And to your audience, it is called Event 201 because on the 20th of July of 2019, according to the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation website, they had created a official charter and a constitution for this upcoming Event 201, which took place in October of last year. So the 20th of July of 2019, Jason, is the 201st day minus the leap year in 2019. Now, from July 20th, absolutely, to December 31st is 164 days. Now, as of last week, there were specifically 164 nations around the globe that have been infected with COVID-19. So this cannot be by accident when it comes to the gematria of these numbers. So China, the contagion of global manipulation. Some of the key players that we talked about last week, the World Economic Forum, the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, the Johns Hopkins University Bloomberg School of Public Health. Now, also, we went over concerning the pharmaceutical company by the name of the Novartis AG Group out of Basel, Switzerland. You and I have been talking about them for the past few weeks in relation to Kobe Bryant. Now, it seems like we cannot get away from this Kobe Bryant paradigm because Kobe Bryant was scheduled to go to court on the 29th of January, the following Wednesday, had he lived, because he had multiple class action lawsuits against the Novartis AG Group and 3 of the 2,000 pharmaceutical subsidiary companies that Novartis owns, and that is the NSAID Therapeutic Corporation, capital INSYS, who owns the Acorn Incorporation, capital AKORN, who owns high-tech pharmaceuticals. So not to get away from China, the contagion of global manipulation, but Novartis, which oversees a conglomerate, a consortium of 2,500 sublet pharmaceutical subsidiary companies, 3 of which, Kobe Bean Bryant, was scheduled to go to court the following Wednesday on the 29th, had he lived. And again, that's the NSAID Therapeutic Corporation, the Acorn Incorporation, and high-tech pharmaceuticals. So Novartis in 2006 bought the Chiron Corporation, capital CHIRON, out of Emeryville, California, for $5.7 billion. Now, the Chiron Corporation had patented the coronavirus, okay, and sold it to the Novartis AG Group along with the Chiron Corporation in 2006. But you and I also touched on, actually the past 2 weeks, that the Novartis AG Group, their biggest shareholders here in the United States is Bill Gates and George Soros. So then the Novartis AG Group owns a 33% stake. There's that number 33 because it constantly keeps popping up, Jason.
Yeah.
The 33 degree levels within the global Masonic system. So then, the Novartis AG Group owns a 33% stake in the Hoffman LaRouche company, which is a multinational pharmaceutical company, also out of Basel, Switzerland, which the Hoffman and LaRouche company has two prime subdivisions: diagnostics and pharmaceutics. In the diagnostic division, they create bioweapons. In the pharmaceutical section, they create the cure or the vaccine that is supposed to remove the bioweapon. This is a what I call a two-headed cornucopian Baphomet system. Now, also, when we're talking about China, the contagion of global manipulation, the term pharmacy comes from the Greek word pharmakia, right? Capital Pharmakeia, which means witchcraft, which means metaphysics, which means alchemy, alchemical, potion, spell, divination. And then when we break down the first four letters of the word divination, it reveals the word divi. And this is why I constantly teach women, especially in the church, Jason, never call yourself diva, because those are the acronym letters for the word divination. So that's the interpretation, my friend, of the term pharmacy in relation to China, the contagion of global manipulation.
Now, Bishop, can I share one thing with you very quickly? Because
Absolutely.
it was a few weeks ago, I forget the name of the company that we were discussing, but they had a logo. You and I were sort of going back and forth. Was it a poppy? Was it some other flower? People were saying. As I look at this Novartis logo, I can't help but notice that it also looks like some sort of flower or flame, or what do we make of this Novartis logo?
Oh my, let me check this out. So the Novartis logo, and if you can bring that up on the screen as well. Now, I do
Are you
specifically
seeing
remember
it? Hmm.
that we talked about this company in Hong Kong that was responsible for the two opium wars in China, right?
Yes.
Between 1839 to 1860. Now,
I
that's
think you
interesting.
should see it now, Bishop.
Oh
Can you
my,
see it?
and look at it. It looks like a poppy. Now, you and I
Yeah.
talked about this, right? Again, when we're dealing with corporations like the Novartis AG Group, and also Novartis also specializes in what we call nanotechnology. Okay,
Hmm.
they have a division that they specialize not just in pharmaceutics and diagnostics, but the Novartis AG Group also specializes in nanotechnologies, which is the study of the manipulation of matter of an atomic molecule, which is really the earliest widespread description when we're talking about nanotechnology. It is the study or the application of what we call extremely small things, where they can splice not just DNA, okay? They can also splice human thinking. I'll get into that later on because, again, when we're talking about the Novartis AG Group, in relation to China. And China has two major Novartis AG plants, one in the Wuhan district of China, and the second one in the Guangdong district of China, which in 2018, the Novartis AG Group had sold the patent for the coronavirus. I'll come to that, back to that in about 5 to 10 minutes time. So Novartis, they don't just deal in pharmaceutics, okay, or drugs or weight loss pills, okay, but they also specialize in nanotechnology, right? The manipulation of matter when it comes to atomic energy. So then, when we talk about China, the global contagion of manipulation. So then, when we go to this Hoffman LaRouche Corporation, they also have sublet corporations throughout southern China. Again, this is all interconnected back to the Chinese regime. Now, mind you, I'm not talking about the 1.4 billion Chinese citizens in China. What I'm dealing with, Jason, is the demonic regime in China of the People's Republic of China being led by President Xi Jinping, who is a member of the Masonic Zetland Hall in Hong Kong. And no, the communist government did not outlaw the Masonic order. Okay, so then, China, the contagion of global manipulation. Now we go to China's manipulation concerning their computer markets. We talked about digital footprinting, and they are a massive police state. They got over 200 million cameras throughout Indochina. Okay, they specialize in artificial intelligence, facial recognition software. Now, you and I talked about a man by the name of Moshe Greenspan on last week, that he is the CEO of the Phase 6 LLC Corporation in Las Vegas, Nevada, where
Right.
they specialize in global simulation and facial recognition software.
Wait a minute,
Phase
say that
6,
again. Global simulation. I might have missed that last week. We're hearing so much about these global simulation. What's it called? Face span?
Phase 6, capital FACE, then dash SIX, capital SIX LLC. They're out of Las Vegas, Nevada. So then Phase 6, which also has, more interesting, a sublet division called Church X, capital CHURCHIX. So Church X is a subdivision of Phase 6, where they specialize in global simulation, but also, Jason, they specialize in facial recognition software. Moshe Greenspan, and you and I talked about him last week. Could he be related to the former chair of the Fed, Alan Greenspan? There is no proof of that. So then, why am I bringing up Moshe Greenspan, who is also a former Mossad agent? I'm bringing him up, Jason, because Phase 6 is heavily connected to a Chinese billionaire by the name of Jack Ma, who is the founder of the Alibaba Group, okay, in China. Now, Jack Ma just recently wrote a check for $14.4 million to help the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, including the Open Source Society Foundation, George Soros, to create a vaccine. Okay. So then Moshe Greenspan, the Phase 6 LLC, through the Church X. Now, what is Church X? They specialize in facial recognition software for churches, which
It's
doesn't
weird.
make any sense at all.
No.
So, yeah, absolutely. So now the deep state has infiltrated the church,
It's
the body of
terrible.
it's terrible. And so then China, this contagion of global manipulation. So then they specialize in body scanning, geo tracking, geoengineering. And so going back to the 2018 World Intelligence Congress, which was hosted by the Alibaba Corporation, it displayed Chinese military power in the forms of body scanning, equipment, in the forms of all of these 200 million cameras that now they have the ability, this is crazy, to judge your credit score based on how long it takes you to fill out an application. Okay. It is a Baphomet system. I'm not talking about the people of China. I'm talking about the evil regime that many companies here in the United States, Google, Apple, including Phase 6, is receiving millions of dollars from the Chinese military industrial complex, not to build the US military industrial complex, but to build the Chinese military industrial complex, which is treason. This is China, the contagion of global manipulation. Now, as we move forward here, now, as a side note, back in 2018, a fifth of China's housing markets are empty. They're building all of these massive hotels and mansions and condos with no one living in these entities. There's a reason for that. And so then when we look at the Silk Road Belt and Road Initiative, we talked about that the past 2 weeks as well. Because when you look on that simulation map concerning COVID-19 put out by Johns Hopkins University, those nations that are hit and decimated by COVID-19 are the nations who not only have rejected the Belt and Road Initiative, because when you look on a map concerning the Silk Road Belt and Road Initiative that goes back during the days of Genghis Khan, that map is shaped like a dragon. But the Bible talks about in Isaiah chapter 27 that God would destroy the dragon, including in the book of Revelation. So China is connected through this global contagion to the United Nations, to the World Bank, to the IMF, the International Monetary Fund, okay, to the World Health Organization. And I believe that the World Health Organization must be brought to bear, Jason. The United States government, we have to sue not only the World Health Organization, but also the World Bank and the International Monetary Fund, who are sending China millions and billions of dollars. Why? Because the World Health Organization, the World Bank, the IMF, including the Security Council of the UN, the Economic and Security Council, are all in bed with the Chinese. Again, I'm not talking about the 1.4 billion Chinese citizens. I'm talking about that evil regime in China. Now, that picture
Bishop,
that's showing.
sorry to interrupt, but I just wanted to point out, we're talking about the World Health Organization, and the director general of that is this guy, Dr. Tedros Adhanom. He is, there's a lot of information coming forward about him that indicates that some of the activity by the Clinton Foundation and the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation in some of these African countries where vaccines and HIV and AIDS treatments are being sent, we've already known that they were using pharmaceuticals from a very corrupt Indian pharmaceutical company called Ranbaxy, the two principals of which are currently under indictment and I believe in prison in India for wrongdoing related to that company. But there's information coming forward now. Charles Ortel was discussing that this guy Tedros may have selectively put these, vaccination programs into areas of Ethiopia that were politically opposed to his political party. So sort of a targeted distribution of these faulty drugs that many people are aware have resulted in injury rather than helping the people who were getting them.
And see, and again, I'm so glad that you brought him up because he is a Leninist. He's a Marxist. He belongs to many Ethiopian far left communist, socialist, Marxist organizations. So he was put in as a pawn by the global Luciferian deep state. He has close connections to Dr. Little Midget Fauci, and I've sent you some photos with his left hand inside of his pocket. Right. Okay, that is a hidden hand Masonic order symbol and sign, okay? That the right hand means he's in fellowship. The left hand means, there you go, it means that he's on his way out. Now, people have been asking me, Jason, for the past 2 weeks, why is the president keeping him around? Well, keep your friends close, keep your enemies closer. But Dr. Tedros Adhanom and Dr. Fauci are closely related and connected to a woman by the name of Dr. Theresa Tam, capital T-A-M, okay? She is the director of Canada of the Canadian Public Health Agency. in Canada, okay, who was hired by Justin Trudeau a few years ago. Dr. Teresa Tam has hundreds of thousands of dollars worth of shares in the Wuhan Institute and the Wuji App Institute, which is a part of the Wuhan Institute of Virology. And again, I'm not accusing Dr. Teresa Tam of anything, but my assignment as a historian, as a researcher, as a teacher is to connect the dots. Now, Dr. Teresa Tam is heavily connected to the World Health Organization. And one of her key sayings that she constantly says, Chicago Medical School, isn't it interesting? Just like
Yep.
Dr. Colleen Smith.
Well,
Dr.
she went to Chicago University or University of Chicago, but they're all hanging out in Chicago. Perhaps they know each other from going to Marxist events.
Yes, excellent, excellent find, Jason. And this Dr. Teresa Tam is called the Queen of the Vaccine by the citizens of Canada. They don't
Wow.
trust her like we don't trust. She is the Tony Fauci of Canada. Dr. Teresa Tam, one of her motto sayings is as such: I always think we do a really good job when no one else knows what we're doing. Let me say it again. She says, I always think we do a really good job when no one knows what we're doing. And one of the most powerful links, backed up by proof and links in data, is the Civilian Intelligence Network.ca. Civilian Intelligence Network.ca. So Canada's chief public health officer, okay, she is the queen of vaccines. She has shares, not just in the Alibaba group, but she's got shares because she still holds Chinese citizenship at the same time that she's living in Canada, okay, working for the Canadian government.
Pretty interesting.
Yes, she's got shares also in the Wuhan Institute of Virology, which is really actually owned by the Soros Management Fund Group, George Soros, and the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. So then this is the reason why Bill Gates, Melinda Gates, okay, George Soros, Dr. Little Midget Tony Fauci, Dr. Teresa Tam, they are pushing for a vaccine. They don't want the president, okay, to go another route, okay? They want the president to force this vaccine. Now, the interesting thing is, Jason, that Bill Gates had said that he is not going to allow his family to receive the vaccine, but he's telling you and I to receive the vaccine. Isn't that interesting? So then China, the contagion of global manipulation. Now, getting back to that Secretary General, Tedros Adhanom, according to the Financial Times,
sorry, real quick, Bishop. I just need to alert everybody. So I've heard this many times that Bill Gates doesn't want to vaccinate his family, but when I Google that, I do get a post from April 18th, 2019, where Melinda Gates, with a verified check on Facebook, is saying all 3 of my children are fully vaccinated. Vaccines work.
But the thing is, which specific vaccination? See, these people are not stupid, Jason. See, of course, they will always perpetuate a lie. What is the saying I shared with you maybe a month ago? What else do you expect from a pig other than the grunt? And of course, they're going to say that. And so then when we're talking about China, the contagion of global manipulation, man, I'm excited today. So this Dr. Tedros Adhanom, according to an op-ed, an excellent picture there, Jason. Now look at Dr. Anthony Fauci, okay, with some of the key players of the global elite, George Soros, Bill Gates Sr., the father of Bill Gates. Bill Gates Sr. was the former director of Planned Parenthood, okay? George Soros, David McCullough of the American Experience, okay? Brooke Astor from the Astor dynasty, okay? Leona Annenberg of the Annenberg dynasty, one of the most powerful families, not just here in New York City, but around the world. Dr. Tony Fauci has his political tentacles to these elite families. But yet, some way, somehow, he is trying to pin the president against the wall. Now he is saying Dr. Fauci is agreeing with Bill Gates. Bill Gates is not a doctor. Bill Gates is not a scientist. But Dr. Fauci is agreeing with Bill Gates that the American economy should be shut down for another year. That's garbage, okay? So when we're talking about this contagion of global manipulation, China, that's also connected to this Dr. Tedros Adhanom, who has shares, Jason, in this company called the Huawei Technology Corporation, or the Huawei Telecommunications Incorporation. Okay. Now, the Huawei Incorporation or Telecommunications Corporations is the leading power when it comes to 5G. I'm going to come up to that in about 5 minutes' time. So then look at this. So you have Dr. Teresa Tam, Dr. Tedros Adhanom, Dr. Little Tony Fauci, Dr. Deborah Birx, all connected to the World Health Organization, to the Chinese government, to Alibaba, to Huawei, to China Mobile and China Unicom. Why? Because they're all connected together in this conspiracy. Because the problem is not COVID-19. The problem, Jason, and if you can go back to that picture that you're seeing right there. Now, to your powerful listeners, that picture is a picture of the god Baal, okay, within Babylonian mythology. Now, as you scroll down, Jason, it shows two biological or chemical properties, properties, barium, Ba, and aluminum, Al.
Look at that.
Bal, that reveals the word Baal.
137.33 is the atomic weight of barium.
Yes, barium and aluminum for Al, Baal, Baal. So Baal or Babylon, Baal in Babylonian mythology was the god of child sacrifice. These two metals are also used in chemtrails, okay? This is a demonic system. A week ago, I'm getting calls from a few pastor colleagues of mine in Baltimore, Maryland. Now, according to them, that there were airplanes spraying chemicals over the city. Why? We don't know. But this is a side note, Jason. When we're talking about China, the contagion of global manipulation, barium, Ba, and aluminum, Al, Baal, Baal, Babylon, Babylonian system. So Baal is the god of child pedophilia and child sacrifice, who is also called the god Molech. Okay.
Oh, now, I thought Moloch was an owl.
Yes. Also, well, this gets to another, what we talked about, hybriding. So the Babylonians had worshipped not just different gods, but they will always interconnect different gods of Baal, Baalism, Molech, Astaroth, and Molech when it comes to the bird, the owl, which is also on the back of the $1 bill in the left-hand corner of the pyramid, which is also on the plane of the rapper Drake. I think you brought that up last week or week before last.
Yeah. So now, there's one other thing I want to bring to your attention, Bishop, because this struck me when you showed us this image of Baal. Now he's got this, I guess, I don't know if he's wearing pants, but if this is a belt buckle or something, it's kind of like a really scary looking skeletonized something there on his belt buckle. And it immediately reminded me of this other devil,
wow,
Ed Buck, with the skeleton on his, what is going on there?
See, and again, Ed Buck, he is really the father of buck breaking, even though is gone back into
Mm.
slavery. Then you got all of these major players. Who is that? Adam Shifty Schiff, all a
Ted
part.
Lieu. Yeah.
There you go, wearing these the rainbow ties. Okay, and Adam Schiff is also connected to that hotel, the Standard Hotel in
Mm.
West Hollywood. But the belt buckle, getting back to Ed Buck, in connection to the god Baal. You see, the global Luciferian deep state, they are worshipers of Lucifer. Now, remember the first letters when we're talking about LSD, which is the nature of the system. L, Lucifer, S, Satan, D, devil, LSD. But Baal is also worshipped as a hybrid demon or being in Babylonian mythology, part man, part beast, part owl. And so this gets to the transhumanism hybriding agenda of the deep state. Again, what is inside of the vaccine that they're trying to push upon us? Okay. Now, I don't know if you heard that back in 2010, there was a report. It gets really powerful now, Jason, put out by the Rockefeller Foundation entitled Scenarios for the Future of Technology in International Development. Scenarios for the future of technology and international development. Okay. So, in other words, they were predicting COVID-19. There you go. And some of the corporations that were backing this 2010 report, okay, is the RAND Corporation. And they had a book that came out in 2006 called The Global Technology Revolution 2020. Wait a minute, but the book came out in 2006. But the RAND Corporation published a book in 2006, The Global Technology Revolution 2020, in-depth analysis of 2020. That was 14 years ago, Jason, okay? And also the Institute for the Future Science and Technology, which is a depopulation front. The World Bank was backing this 2010 report, okay? So this report put out by the Rockefeller Foundation was also backed by the World Bank, Science, Technology, and Innovation, the capacity building for sustainable growth and poverty reduction, which is depopulation, okay? And so then there were some powerful individuals, Jason, that had backed this 2006 report of and through the Rockefeller Foundation, the Tavistock Group, okay, the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, the Soros Management Fund, including the Tavistock Group, okay, including the Institute for the Future Science and Technology Outlook. These are initiatives that are proponents of depopulation. So then the Rockefeller Foundation was predicting in what we call predictive programming, okay, 14 years ago, of the coming pandemic. You and I had talked about not just Event 201, but Crimson Contagion, which the federal government, through the Department of Health and Human Services, enacted that pandemic or plandemic exercise, okay, last year from January to August of 2019. And by the way, there you go. Crimson Contagion is a key exercise that the global elite were preparing for, okay, which Dr. Tedros Adhanom, the Secretary General, was also a part of. So then, as we move forward here, man, it gets really, really deeper now, Jason, concerning Event 201. Now, we know that the World Economic Forum was created by a man by the name of Klaus Schwab that he is not a cousin or a blood relative of Charles Schwab, but this Klaus Schwab created the World Economic Forum in January of 1971 with money coming from and through the Rockefeller Foundation, the same foundation that put out this report in 2006 concerning a coming pandemic, scenarios for the future of technology and international development. Okay.
Whoa, this guy was born in Ravensburg, Germany in 1938. I was going to say he looks like a Nazi, but that's a little bit not the type of thing I usually say. However, perhaps looks are not so deceiving.
Absolutely. And you know, this interesting character, Klaus Schwab, also he hosts every year the Davos Financial Forum Group, with some of the most powerful individuals within politics, within the banking industry, within the entertainment industry, the Davos Forum International Group. He hosts this international consortium every year. Okay, so Klaus Schwab is heavily connected to the World Health Organization, to the International Monetary Fund, which is funding the Chinese regime, the contagion of global manipulation, including the Rockefeller Foundation. Now, mind you, the Rockefeller Foundation founded and created the League of Nations, the United Nations, the International Monetary Fund, and the World Bank, including the World Health Organization. Now, again, this foundation, this report going back, not just to 2006, there was another report that came out in 2010 that was predicting from just 2006 and 2010, two reports that propagated, Jason, a future pandemic that could be used by the global elite to establish authoritarian power, okay, through forced vaccination. Now, you have to understand, my friend, that when we're talking about China, the contagion of global manipulation. So there is another book, The Global Technology Revolution, okay, 2020, when it talks about bio nanotechnology, okay, information trends and social implications. In other words, it is a manifesto for depopulation. The elite didn't come up with this 2 years ago. The elite have been preparing for this, including through the Centers for Disease Control. But notice, it's not called, Jason, the Centers for Disease Eradication.
Or prevention.
State is interested in eradicating sickness and disease. Why? Just like the Baal statue, just like the caduceus of Baphomet, the origination of the global medical industrial complex is to only remove the pain, but to never deal with the root of the pain. They're not interested in curing you. They can heal you physically, but get this, but they cannot cure you emotionally. That's another topic for another day. So the global deep state, when it comes through the Centers for Disease Control, they only want to control the pathogen. They're not interested of removing the pathogen. So then, China, the contagion of global manipulation. We talked about this event 201. There were two young men who founded the Facebook Corporation, Dustin Moskovitz and Mark Zuckerberg, who through the Open Philanthropy Project, with the backing of the Open Society Foundation's George Soros, had given millions of dollars to the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation to subsidize Event 201. Now, like you said last week, a lot of the players who came from the CDC, came from the Department of Homeland Security, who came from the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services. They're innocent people, but they are pawns, as Napoleon Bonaparte said. These are chess pieces to be maneuvered at will by the hand of the invisible elite. And so then China, the global contagion of global manipulation. So this Event 201 crisis, okay? Now remember, the 201st day of the year is July 20th. So then the Constitution, the preamble of this future event, Event 201, was established on the 20th of January through the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, and the 20th of January is the 201st day of 2019, minus the leap year. And from July 20th to December 31st is 164 days, 2 weeks ago, according to the CDC. And according to the World Health Organization, if you believe their numbers, there's 164 nations that have been infected by this global pandemic. So then China, the global contagion of global manipulation. So then Dustin Moskovitz and Mark Zuckerberg are co-founders of this open philanthropy project. Now, there's a man by the name of David Plouffe, who is the former campaign manager for Barack Obama's 2008 presidential run. David Plouffe is a proponent of depopulation. He is the director of policy and advocacy for the Chan Zuckerberg Initiative. Chan, Dr. Priscilla Chan, is the wife of Mark Zuckerberg. So through the Chan Zuckerberg Initiative, they are proponents of depopulation. I'm going to come to that here in the next few minutes. They are proponents of depopulation. So then some of the major players, okay, and we talked about that had subsidized or given capital liquid money to Facebook was Peter Thiel, right, of the QTEL Corporation and the Clearing Capital Fund, and many other CIA venture capital fronts, the Accel Partners Group, okay, the Greylock Partners Group, okay. These are CIA front companies that have given millions of dollars, hundreds of millions of dollars, to Mark Zuckerberg and Dustin Moskovitz. And also, I have to expose this laboratory. There's a laboratory by the name of Charles River Laboratories, which is heavily owned by the George Soros Management Fund Group. So then the Charles River Laboratories is traded on Wall Street with George Soros money, and also money coming from Bill and Melinda Gates. So the Charles River Laboratories, in connection to the Wuhan Institute of Virology and the Wuxi AppTech, and mind you, last week I said that the address, my friend, of the Wuxi, capital W-U, capital X-I, AppTech is 666 Gaoxin Road East, capital Gaoxin Road East. And you can find that on WuxiAppTech.com. Wuxi, WuxiAppTech.com/about/location. So one of the locations of the Wuxi AppTech, which is a subsidiary, my brother, of the Wuhan Institute of Virology, which is the epicenter of the coronavirus. And that address is 666 Gaoxin, capital Gaoxin Road East, within the Lake High Tech Development Zone.
There you go.
There you go. So then, again, we're talking about China, the global contagion of global manipulation. They are the contagion of global manipulation and global deception. Now, remember, we talked about these two metals of elements, all right? Barium, right? Ba, in aluminum, Al, Baal, Baal, 666. Everything has not only a political paradigm, but a spiritual paradigm in relation to China, the contagion of global manipulation. So as we move forward, now I'm going to get deeper, Jason, into Event 201 again. October 18, 2019. Now, here are some of the major players. I'm going to go deeper into this. Some of the major players that financially backed Event 201, Bill and Melinda Gates, through the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, the World Economic Forum, Klaus Schwab, okay, who founded the World Economic Forum, including he is the host of the Davos Economic Forum, okay, which invites NGOs, non-governmental organizations, CEOs, and they have 1,000-member list of companies under the Davos Economic Forum, under the World Economic Forum, Klaus Schwab, John Hopkins, and the mini Mike Bloomberg School of Public Health, the Center for Health Security, also financially backed Event 201, Dustin Moskovitz, and Mark Zuckerberg. Now, there's a rumor, Jason, you got to help me with this. Now, I am a researcher. You've never heard me say, well, to throw out stuff and just let's see if it's going to stick to the wall. I am not that type of teacher nor researcher. Okay, so they're saying there's a lot of rumors, and I don't go by rumors, that Mark Zuckerberg's real name is Jacob Michael Greenberg, who is the grandson of David Rockefeller. I cannot substantiate that, okay? And I remember 2 years ago on my radio program, and I had made mention of this, and I posted the interview that I did with this individual, who I'm not going to name, and I was in Facebook prison for 3.5 months. Huh. So then, the Open Philanthropy Project. Now, as a side note, Jason, back in February of 2020, Mark Zuckerberg traveled to Brussels to speak at the headquarters of the EU in order to unveil AI strategy for the European common market. So Mark Zuckerberg, through the Chan Zuckerberg Initiative, are heavily involved in not just the depopulation program, through the George Soros Open Foundation Society, and also he's heavily connected to Robert Mercer, here we go, and Alistair MacWilson. Now, one may say, who is Robert Mercer and who is Alistair MacWilson? They are the creators of Cambridge Analytica. Let me see. There you go. Along with my buddy Steve Bannon. Robert Mercer, Alistair MacWilson, who created Cambridge Analytica, and I had heard as of yesterday that it no longer exists. So they're in connection to not just Mark Zuckerberg and the Open Philanthropy Project, but there were people from the Cambridge Analytica Corporation who attended Event 201. Now, China, the contagion of global manipulation. Let's move on here. Man, it gets deeper here, my friend. So as we're talking about and exposing these demonic layers, the Open Philanthropy Project, there is another a billionaire by the name of Divish Makhan, capital D-I-V-E-S-H, Makhan, capital M-A-K-A-N. He is an Indian billionaire from South Africa. He is the CEO of the iconic Capital firm, capital I-C-O-N-I-Q, Capital. Now, Divish Makhan is a part of the Bilderberger Group. He attended the 2016 Bilderberg Conference, along with Mark Zuckerberg and the sister of Mark Zuckerberg, Randy Zuckerberg. These are the players of the Open Philanthropy Project who are also Bilderbergers, okay? So then this Devish Makan, okay, attended the 2016 Bilderberg Conference along with Mark Zuckerberg, along with Mark Zuckerberg's sister, Randy Zuckerberg. They're all a part of the Bilderberg Corporation, the system, the Bilderberg Foundation, okay? Now, his name is this, and please type this in, Jason. After Bilderberg meeting, Facebook official says in internet, okay? After Bilderberg meeting, Facebook official says in END internet, or just type in thenewamerican.com, where it says specifically that Mark Zuckerberg, Randy Zuckerberg, okay, including Devish Makan, who are all a part of the Open Philanthropy Project, who subsidized Event 201, the simulation conference, in connection to Crimson Contagion. So then there's
Sorry, Bishop, just to
yeah.
correct slightly, they want to end internet anonymity.
Yes. Now, if you believe that, and I've got some mansions to sell you in India. See, in other words, again, I'm glad that you brought that up, my friend, because you are a great host and researcher when it comes to detail. Now, I'm not castigating, and I'm getting emails here from people saying that their minds are blown, but at the same time, they're asking me, am I accusing the Zuckerbergs of bringing on this contagion? I am not. My job and responsibility, Jason, is to connect the dots of the players on this global chessboard. You see, a lot of us are thinking checkers. They're thinking chess.
Right.
So then this Devish Makan, Mark Zuckerberg, Randy Zuckerberg, okay, Dustin Moskovitz, they're all a part of the Bilderberg secret society of the power elites. There's a woman by the name of Carrie Tuna, okay, capital Tuna. She is a reporter for the Wall Street Journal, okay. She is married to Dustin Moskovitz, but yet she participated in the 2019 Bilderberg Conference. Wait a minute, she's only a reporter for the Wall Street Journal, but she's connected to the Bilderberg Group through her husband. Another billionaire, his name is Alexander Berger. It gets really ugly here, Jason, really deep here. Alexander Berger, along with Carrie Tuna, along with Miss Tuna's husband, Dustin Moskovitz and Mark Zuckerberg, created the Open Philanthropy Project, the project that financially backed, not just, and who is backing now, not just Event 201 as they did last year, but also they are spending millions of dollars into the Chinese market when it comes to AI technology and depopulation. And they also fund the Wuhan Institute, along with the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, along with George Soros in his Open Source Society foundations. Another man by the name of Alexander Berger, okay? He is one of the founding partners of the Open Philanthropy Project. We're going deeper here when it comes to China, the contagion of global manipulation. Alexander Berger is one of, there you go, of the CEOs, the main players in this Open Philanthropy Project. His father, okay, is the late, and this is going to be really powerful here when I'm about to reveal to you, my friend. He is the son of the former U.S. National Security Advisor within the Clinton administration, okay, Sandy Berger.
Oh, wow.
Sandy
Berger is the guy who stole classified documents from the National Archives.
Yes, and David Hawkins said the same thing. Alexander Berger is the son of the late Sandy Berger, of the former U.S. National Security Advisor under the Clinton administration from 97 to 2001. So his son is one of the key players of the Open Philanthropy Project in connection to Event 201 and the Crimson Contagion simulation, which brought on this global exercise of what we call COVID-19. Oh my God. So Event 201. Now, as we move forward here, now Event 201 is the simulation exercise game through the Open Society Foundation, George Soros, and the Open Philanthropy Project, Dustin Moskovitz, Mark Zuckerberg, Divish Makhan, okay, Alexander Berger, Carrie Tuna, okay,
Isn't that a weird name, Carrie Tuner? I don't trust the Wall Street Journal at all, Bishop. You know, I'm not sure if you were following this story in 2017, but when a guy named Peter W. Smith died mysteriously and it was quickly a rush to judgment that it was a suicide, the Wall Street Journal, and specifically a guy named Shane Harris, who now is a journalist covering national security matters at the Washington Post, they published a number of stories that I have evidence which indicates were false. And when I confronted Shane Harris on this, he refused to speak to me about it. He just hung up the phone.
You see, they don't want to face a true journalist like you, Jason. They run from you. They would rather talk to the crack news network, CNN. They would rather talk to ABC, CBS, NBC, CNBC. Why? Yeah. Because the American medium or media, this is where we get the term media or medium, which in the Bible means a witch. These are witches. These are warlocks, okay, within the U.S. Medium or the media industrial complex. They don't care about truth. And mind you, some of these key players, I'm sticking to these Open Philanthropy Project players, Mark Zuckerberg, Divish Makhan, okay, and another person by the name of Holden Karnofsky, capital Karnofsky, Holden Karnofsky, along with Alexander Berger, along with Dustin Moskowitz, Divish Makhan, and Mark Zuckerberg own shares in some of the most powerful telecommunications companies on this earth, China Mobile, China Telecom, and China Unicom, in connection to Jack Ma, the Alibaba Group. These are proponents of 5G, Jason, including the Huawei Telecommunications Corporation in China. They have these players of Moskowitz, all right, and Karnofsky and Berger and Mark Zuckerberg and Divish Makhan own stock in these telecommunications corporations, not just in China with China Mobile, China Telecom, and China Unicom, but also they have heavily invested in a telecommunications company out of the Czech Republic called O2, okay? The Czech Republic is being decimated with COVID-19. In any country that has 5G, they're also suffering, okay, from COVID-19. And later on, probably in the next 5 minutes before we close out at 2:30, I'm going to give you a chronological timeline in history going back to 1918, to the 1918 Spanish flu up until right now with COVID-19. The problem is not the virus. Again, the problem is with this 5G, 4G, 3G technology, okay? So before we move forward, China, the global contagion of global manipulation, they are the contagion of what we call global manipulation. I'm not talking about the Chinese people, okay? I want to make that perfectly clear. I am talking about that demonic regime in Beijing. Mark Zuckerberg and Alexander Berger, along with Divish Makhan, they also run the Pew Charity Trust and the Pew Public Safety Performance Project, which is a front for depopulation. The Pew Charity Trust and the Pew Public Safety Performance Project, these billionaires had millions of dollars worth of investments in these global initiative foundations, which has the cover, Jason, of helping humanity. But at the surface, they are for the vaccinations of certain second and third world countries. And mind you, I don't know if you heard the news, but last Thursday, one of the Kennedy children, a woman by the name of Maeve Kennedy Townsend McKean, Maeve, capital Maeve, she was the granddaughter of the late Senator Robert F. Kennedy Sr., and she is the niece of Robert F. Kennedy Jr. Maeve Kennedy Townsend McKean was not only a human rights attorney, but she was also the executive director of Georgetown's University Global Health Initiative. In other words, she opposed vaccination, Jason. But all of a sudden, she's missing.
Yeah,
Yes.
Well, they found her. They're reporting just 3 hours ago on CNN that Maeve Kennedy Townsend McKean's body was found by divers. I think I read about this last night. The Potomac, where was she found? It says members of a dive and rescue team found the body in 25 feet of water about 2.5 miles from her mother's residence around 5:31 p.m. Maryland Natural Resources Police. That's a weird, Natural Resources Police. I've never heard of Natural Resources Police. I've heard of police. But the family was self-quarantining at their mother's home in Chesapeake Bay when Maeve and Gideon were playing kickball, and one of them kicked the ball into the water. So I guess she fell into the water trying to retrieve the ball, and it took them days to locate her. Is that what happened?
Yeah, that's what they're saying. And now I have a pastor friend that lives in Virginia Beach, Virginia, and he was telling me he works for the city government in Virginia Beach, and him and his wife often go to Chesapeake Bay. Now, again, I'm just going by his word. I can't find this on the internet, so I don't want people to run with it. According to my friend, that the city governments, both in the state of Virginia and Maryland, closed down Chesapeake Bay last week. So how is it that she had clearance, just like Kobe Bryant had clearance, to get into a helicopter after the fact that the LA County Sheriff's Department and the LAPD could not fly, but Kobe could? So then Maeve Kennedy was against vaccinations. Now, again, I'm not trying to put two and two together. I'm just connecting the dots here as we're talking about China, the contagion of global manipulation here. And so then it's interesting that her body was missing. And now it's interesting that on Wikipedia, as of last Friday, it gave the date of her death on April the 2nd, which was the date that she went missing. Okay. And I didn't know that they just found her body until you just told me. So China, the contagion of global manipulation. Now here, the human body, Jason, and this is the reason why there's a cover-up here. Again, the cover-up is not with COVID-19. COVID-19 is being used not only by the Chinese deep state, but by the World Health Organization, the International Monetary Fund, the World Bank, okay, including the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation and the George Soros Open Source Society Foundation. They're covering up for the fact that there is a clear and imminent danger when it comes to 5G, okay? So I'm glad that you're showing that picture of Maeve Kennedy, okay? Now, was she taken out? We don't know, but she opposed through her Georgetown University's Department of the Global Health Initiative. They were anti-vaccination. They were an anti-vaccination group. Maybe another topic for another day concerning her. Now, getting back to the Event 201, through the Department of Homeland Security, the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services, in giving birth to Crimson Contagion. You and I talked about that, which is a simulation exercise, right? Remember Dr. Colleen Smith, we talked about her. Now, Mark Zuckerberg, as a side note quickly, is heavily invested, Jason, into germ therapy and gene therapy. He's heavily invested into bioengineering and geoengineering, including nanotechnology,
Mm.
and was heavily connected to the Cambridge Analytical System Incorporation. Okay, that's also connected to Steve Bannon. Okay, now look at these historical patterns here. We're almost done here. As we are still schematically breaking down China, the contagion of global manipulation. 1G came out. Okay, now notice this. Let's go back even further than 1918, the Spanish flu. Okay, now the Spanish flu was brought on not because there was a physical contagion or someone was carrying the pathogen of Spanish flu, but Spanish flu was birthed because of the creation of radio waves, okay, in the country of Spain, which was the epicenter and the petri dish of the Spanish flu. So when you have 5G, 4G, 3G, 1G, radio satellite technology, it's always going to give birth and conception to a physical contagion. So the Spanish flu, because of radio waves. Now, 1G in 1979. Then you have influenza. Then you have 2G in 1991. Then you have the cholera epidemic. 3G in 1998. Another outbreak of influenza. 4G came out in 2009. You got it, H1N1. And now 5G in 2019, COVID-19.
Now, Bishop, let me ask you something, because a lot of people have been talking about this, and a lot of people are obviously concerned about 5G. I've heard many people sharing that sort of time correlation. It seems very vague to me. Do we have any other scientific data that links the rollout of these technologies with these sicknesses? Because surely there were a lot of other circumstances happening at those times, and I think we could probably selectively choose and identify things. And what's that saying, that correlation does not equal causation?
Exactly. In a reaction, there's an action in a reaction, but that's not always the case when we're talking about 5G. Now, I cannot help but to think as a historian, as a dot connector, that from 1G to 2, 3, 4, 5G, then you had these pandemics. Now, in England, I don't know if you know about this, that some of the citizens are burning down 5G towers in England as we speak. And because they feel, now without any scientific backing, I'm only connecting in a timeology chronological order when the 1G to 5G came out, as far as radio wave broadband satellite technology in connection to these pandemics. Now, could it be because that we have these pandemics because of this technology? That cannot be substantiated. So I'm glad that you brought that out. We have to bring forth what we call an educational balance, because I am a researcher and a historian. I just don't run with stuff.
Sure. And certainly people burning the towers could be attributed to them hearing reports on the internet that caused them to believe this. I'm not certain that anyone who is necessarily doing the vandalism of destroying somebody else's property has done all the research to determine if these statements are true or untrue. They could be coincidental. I just don't know. And the thing that I'm very cautious of is that certainly any technology poses threats. I got to imagine when automobiles were introduced, there were probably proponents of horse carriages that said, hey, automobiles are dangerous. They make smoke that makes people cough. They're obviously bad for you. You could run people over and crash. We don't want to get rid of automobiles. I imagine even horse breeders and buggy whip makers might have tried to vandalize automobile manufacturers. So I want more hard information on this 5G situation, because with regard to COVID-19, 5G is being advertised all over New York City. So it doesn't make sense to me that if it were directly involved, we've got these sort of hotspots. Like, I don't think they have more 5G technology in Elmhurst, Queens, or somewhere in Brooklyn than they do in Manhattan. I don't have data on this, but just thinking logically and looking at where the advertising is, I think Verizon and AT&T want to put their best products where the densest market is, and that would mean Manhattan right here. So I want some more information on that before we really make a conclusion. And then I want to just let you know, Ido Gold wants me to ask you, Bishop, if a future episode we can perhaps comment on Peter Lavenda. I think he means Peter Lavelle and his books with regard to Aleister Crowley and all that. That's a whole other big topic, right, Lavelle?
Absolutely. Maybe we can start on that next week, because I just wanted this series to be a three-part series when it came to China and this contagion of global manipulation. Maybe we can start on that in the beginning next week. Excellent, excellent point by your listeners. I keep saying this, my friend, you have the best listeners that I've ever been around or have ever been a part of, as far as the Crowdsource the Truth family. So maybe we can start on that new series next week. We touched on the Thelema Secret Society, and when it came to Kobe Bryant and the Theosophical Secret Society. So absolutely, we can touch on that as well. And, getting to this 5G, there is a term here called cellular memory, okay? And to your listeners, write that down because this is very critical, cellular memory. Now, that is a scientific term, cellular memory. There's a lot of medical and neurologists, a lot of medical scientists, specifically in the field of neurology, Jason, stating that there was a case in San Diego, California, a few years ago, of a woman that was murdered, okay? And when the woman was murdered, right, I believe that same night or the following morning, right, her heart was taken out through a heart transplant operation and given to a heart transplant recipient who was needing a heart. So when this man received the heart of this woman in San Diego, California, and to my cellular memory in connection to 5G, China, the contagion of global manipulation. So when this man received the heart of this woman who was murdered, this man, Jason, began to have dreams.
Wow.
Dreams of not only the face of the assailant, the murderer, but also began to have dreams seeing the license plate number.
Wow.
This is cellular memory. So then when you talk about, and you and I talked about...
But Bishop, did that license plate number lead to arresting the murderer?
It did. I will give you absolutely. And so this man he went to the police because he found out this major case of this woman, this cold case, that this woman was found dead, strangled, and this man had received her heart and was beginning to have dreams. So he told his family, and they went to the police, the San Diego police, and he was given detailed information that only the killer could know. Okay, there you go. So of what type of car the man was driving, the driver license plates of the driver's car, which led to the man's arrest. We call this cellular memory. Whether if it's through a heart transplant, a brain transplant, any type of organ transplantation type of surgery, the recipient will often receive what we call cellular memory. This is what we call soul tying in the church, right? Any information that was in that woman's body was transferred to that man, which led to the arrest of this cold case of this killer, who remembered the color of the man, who remembered his hairstyle, the car type, the type of automobile, and Jason, the license plates number. This is cellular memory. That's just a side note. When it comes
I want to make sure we can corroborate that, because when we have these really fantastic stories, we need to have equally convincing evidence. How can I find something about that, Bishop? Do we know the person's name or anything like that? Police charge man with woman's murder, 28-year cold case. It's hard to find this stuff.
There's many, many cases. I'll have to send that to you, but
Okay.
that wasn't even a part of my mental notes. But that's something that came to my mind, and that's something I would probably definitely like to get into on a separate show of cellular memory. And that just came to my mind when we were talking about 5G technology in relation to COVID-19 and H1N1. So in my conclusion, man, this has been a powerful broadcast. When we talk about, and we talked about this term, neuroplasticity, okay, last week, where again, a lot of scientists in the field of human psychology, when it talks about psyops, when it talks about neurology, that the human brain grows into the shape of what the individual is thinking at that moment, okay? Again, that's another topic for another day. So China, getting back to China, right? The contagion of global manipulation, okay? So then, you and David Hawkins, I can't remember what show, but you guys were talking about a sculpture outside of the BBC. Do you remember that sculpture?
Okay. Yes, I do. There's two that are of interest.
Yes. Can you pull up that sculpture?
Yes.
And I'm not getting away from China, the contagion of global manipulation, okay? But I'm just bringing this out for your listeners. That is going to blow their minds in concerning not just China being the contagion of global manipulation, but also what the words mean. There you go. Now, when we look at that, now who was the name of the sculpture? Eric Gill. Okay.
Yes.
Now, when you look at the letters OBSC, right, VLTA, okay. Yep. I believe in the Latin Vulgate expression, right, it means to listen and obey. Correct.
Right? Yep.
Now, that term OBSCVLTA is also connected to a word obsculta, okay? Capital OBSCULTA, obsculta, cota, or cult. Obsculta simply signifies that which is obsolete or obsolescence. So that term obsculta, capital OBSCULTA, is a Latin word meaning to be obsolete in connection to depopulation. China, the global contagion of this pandemic that we call COVID-19. So then, this OBSCVLTA simply means to listen and obey. And we're talking about the pedophilia, child trafficking system. And I believe, Jason, and I've been getting a lot of information from a lot of my listeners, that the Red Cross ships that the president is sending out don't actually have COVID-19 patients. Those ships actually have children. Now, I cannot substantiate that, so I don't want people to run with that, okay? That's something that we can get into at a future date, that there are underground wars as we speak, Jason. I believe that we are in a soft World War III scenario, and mind you, the Red Cross that was created back in the late 1890s, right, with Rothschild money, was actually a secret society in the beginning, headed by doctors who were 33rd and 1/2 degree Masons, another topic for another day. But that term that you and David Hawkins brought out actually blew my mind. And I began to do a deeper study on that, on the these letters on that sculpture outside of the BBC, the British Broadcasting Corporation in London, OBSCVLTA, listen and obey, or obsculta, capital OBSCULTA, which means obsolescence, to be obsolete. Okay, so then these words, obsolescence, okay, this is the mindset in the psyop of the deep state. There you go, right there. Okay? These are pedophilia symbols that are not only within the United Kingdom, but around the world. Okay? As we're ending this part 3 of this series, China, on the global contagion, the contagion of global manipulation. And I have to say this, give me about 2 to 3 minutes and I'm done, Jason. Now, China, President Xi Jinping is a lover, believe it or not, of the papacy of the Roman Empire. Though he is not a Christian, he is a communist, he is a socialist, he's a Marxist and a Leninist. We're talking about China, the global contagion, the contagion of global manipulation. But President Xi Jinping is a lover, is a studier of the papacy system of unum sanctum. Capital UNAM sanctum. Well, somebody may say, Bishop, what does unum sanctum mean? And 2, what does unum sanctum have anything to do with China, the contagion of global manipulation? Pope Boniface VIII, okay, back in November, on November the 18th, 1302, Pope Boniface VIII, and mind you, Alcoholics Anonymous was founded in the home of Bill Wilson, his wife, and Dr. Bob in 1935 through a seance. I kid you not, anyone can look that up, with at least 50 different links documented. And I know a lot of people who works for Alcoholics Anonymous. And they said that the 12-step program was built upon a seance where Bill Wilson was invoking the spirit of Boniface.
They always talk about the friends of Bill, right? That's like the code for Alcoholics Anonymous.
Yes, absolutely. And again, I'm not casting any stones. I'm not castigating those of your listeners who may have family members in Alcoholics Anonymous, or they themselves have gone through that. But I'm just revealing the origin, right? Or the historicity of Alcoholics Anonymous being founded upon a seance in the home of Bill Wilson, his wife, and Dr. Bob, right, the co-founder of Alcoholics Anonymous, where they founded the 12-step program, not from the Bible, not from the Word of God, but through a seance in connection to demons of the underworld, where they were invoking the presence of Pope Boniface VIII. So Alcoholics Anonymous, the 12-step program, okay, was built upon witchcraft and divination. I know that's hard for your listeners to understand. This is mind-blowing. But unum sanctum is the part of history that actually the president of China is a lover of the papacy history. When we talk about China, the contagion of global manipulation. So unum sanctum was instituted on the 18th of November, 1302, by Pope Boniface VIII, which he sent out a global decree, Jason, signifying that the Pope has now given birth to absolute authority and power through the Vatican over all human authorities, spiritual and natural. Let me say it again. So unum sanctum, the bull unum sanctum, was a worldwide global psyop going back to November 18, 1302, of global domination through the papacy system. This is the same thing that the Chinese regime are doing, not the 1.4 billion people, but the Chinese regime. So President Xi Jinping is a lover of not just of Genghis Khan in the history of the Silk and Belt and Road Initiative, but he's also a lover of religious history when it comes to the papacy system of global domination. This is where Pope Boniface had created the entity of what you and I call the birth certificate. In other words, when you were born, when I was born, okay, uh, your parents and my parents had signed this, what we call the birth certificate, which is nothing more than a bill of lading. Okay, this is where we get the term manufacture versus maritime. Manufacture, man, your father, my father. Maritime, Mary, your mother and my mother. So then, your mother and my mother gave labor through manufacturing because the woman represents maritime. That's the Silk Road Belt and Road Initiative, okay? The manufacturing of goods through maritime location. I'm talking about the shipping of products, maritime. Manufacturing, okay, gives forth labor through maritime. So the unum sanctum was a global psyop, Jason, that the birth certificate, which is nothing more than a bill of lading. And do you know that your birth certificate and mine is sold on the stock market? We'll talk about that another
I've
time.
heard this, yeah, but I mean, it's another one of these things. Let me just interject for a moment here, Bishop, because there's a number of things that we're talking about that I always like to bring up external references to these things so that, we're not stating these things as facts, they're observations, and when we can corroborate them with other evidence, they become stronger. I just want to address some of the things that you were saying about the USNS Comfort, the Navy ship that is harbored here at Pier 90. I went up there a few days ago. I mean, as far as I know, this is a naval ship. It does have a Red Cross on it, but I don't think that the charity group, the Red Cross, has anything to do with the ship. It was initially intended to tend to hospital patients in New York City who did not have coronavirus. And I guess the logic was, as a self-contained, isolated thing, if it arrives without any coronavirus on it, and we only put people on there who have broken legs and heart attacks and things that you go to the hospital for that are not coronavirus, that might be some kind of safe way to do it. However, in the ultimate display of disorganization, stupidity, or perhaps a planned event, there were only 20 patients on it a couple days after it arrived here, and then they brought a coronavirus patient to it. So now we've had the incompetent governor of New York State, Andrew Cuomo, give a press conference in which he revealed that they've asked President Trump to allow them to put coronavirus patients on there, which is sort of like if you're a little kid and you smash a vase and then you ask your mom if it's okay to break it. It's already broken. So he's asking the president to allow the ship to be used for coronavirus victims now that the thing's been contaminated. Doesn't seem exactly like that was their plan. And specifically, Bishop, on this issue of children in tunnels, while I absolutely have no doubt that there are kidnappers, child traffickers, rapists, horrible criminals who are doing all kinds of things to children, and it may well involve transporting them through tunnels, I have seen no evidence whatsoever that there is some organized liberation of children through tunnels. People have accused this tent hospital in Central Park that's being put up by a Samaritan's Purse. They've accused that of nefarious activity. I don't know anything about Samaritan's Purse. I went there the other day. It's obviously a religious organization. I met a woman who seemed very friendly. I need some substantial evidence to make a determination that those people are doing anything other than setting up a hospital to help people. What I identified by going there that I think is a problem is that we've got this situation in New York City where there are public hospitals and private hospitals, and I'm all right with that. I fully think we should have a system where people who can afford it purchase health insurance, and we disseminate healthcare in the same way we do every other product and service in this country in accordance with the system of capitalism. But as a humane society that has compassion for those that can't help themselves, I think we do need some sort of public health system that is offered to people who can't afford to pay for health insurance. And just like a comparison of the post office to FedEx, or food stamps to, dinner at some fancy restaurant, I think that the public health system should provide adequate health care, but I don't think it's reasonable to expect it to have all of the accoutrements and things that people expect from a capitalist-driven society. I just don't think that's the way that socialism works. So we got a lot of issues here that we're discovering in New York about problems with how healthcare is disseminated. And the biggest problem that I saw with that tent hospital, and this is not the fault of the Good Samaritans setting it up, it's a problem with the way our healthcare system works. And in the event of an emergency, there is no contingency for utilizing private healthcare facilities to tend to members of the public who ordinarily couldn't afford that. I imagine it costs the government a lot of money to drive a boat from the Navy over here and park it there and have people on there. And here we are 2-3 weeks into the crisis and they have 20 patients on there. What if that money was used to pay NYU Hospital or Mount Sinai Hospital or Good Samaritans, whatever they are, pay all those people to take the people that are crushing and overloading apparently Elmhurst Hospital Center and Maimonides Hospital? The whole thing just makes no sense to me. So I'm very reluctant to go to these theories that there's something happening with QAnon and children in tunnels. I just haven't seen any evidence of that. So I want to make sure that people understand when we share things that are opinion or speculation or perhaps your view and not my view. I just want to be very clear on that, Bishop.
See, we're living in a time where we have both psychopathic people and sociopathic people, okay?
Absolutely.
See, you have to understand when we're talking about this global psyop, China, the contagion of global manipulation, psychopaths are born, sociopaths are made, okay? So a psychopath is born, a sociopath is made. So the mindset of the leadership here in New York City and in New York State, they're so inept and they're trying to blame the president. You have Andrew Cuomo walking around with, getting photo ops. Okay. His brother, has been infected with COVID-19 of CNN. But he's going around and lying, telling officials that the president is not sending ventilators. That's a lie. There were thousands of ventilators in a warehouse in New Jersey.
For some reason, these ventilators, Bishop, have become such a political hot potato. It's something that the average layperson has no idea what it is, how it functions, why it may or may not be needed. But it's all we've heard these dopes talking about. It's the central focus of that story with Dr. Colleen Smith saying there's not enough when Cuomo said there were plenty and they didn't need them. We've now got this Dr. Cameron Kyle Seidel, who has said that the ventilators aren't what we need. We need oxygenation, not to be forcing air into people's lungs. I mean, this video right here is supposed to be a gubernatorial press conference. Bishop, it looks more like a podcast YouTube show between two dopes making jokes. And here's a guy who's supposed to be suffering on the right with this deadly virus. I don't know. How does he look to you, Bishop? He's smiling. He's laughing. Seems fine.
And like you said the other day, you got all these doctors, they're supposed to be overwhelmed with this pandemic, this apocalypse, but they got time to Twitter. They got time to send out tweets. No, something's wrong. They got time to send out tweets and to,
go out and say Times. Yeah.
Exactly. So all of this is China, the contagion of global manipulation. And quickly here, in about 2 minutes, and I'm done, Jason. Well, this has been a powerful series. A lot of these depopulation fronts, okay, especially with Event 201. Now, getting back to this Unum Sanctum, that this global conspiracy, this plan that was put in by Pope Boniface VIII, factual in 1302. And so I believe that this COVID-19 is a political psyop, okay?
I agree.
A biological, a chemical unum sanctum that the Chinese are using for global domination, okay? Now, why is 3M sending masks, okay, and all of these medical supplies? 3M, but they're not taking care of the American people. 3M has got billions of dollars tied up in Chinese money. They got 3M plants all over China, okay? With the owner of the New England Patriots, Robert Kraft, sent his jet, right, to China last week, for what? To pick up some masks. I wouldn't pick up a dog from the Chinese. Now, I'm not talking about the Chinese people. Right now, we are dealing with a crisis. And this is really one of the most powerful series I've taught in a long time concerning China, this contagion of global manipulation. And mind you, now, my question to you, Jason, how many chromosomes are in the human body? And this is in relation to how the
56?
human,
I don't
no,
know.
46,
46.
So see, so the human anatomy, the human genome has 46 chromosomes. Now, to your listeners who are biblical students, in Genesis chapter 3, when the serpent speaks to the woman, in chapter 3, in the King James Version, he is speaking to her in approximately 46 words. Now, people say, well, Bishop, what does that got to do with chromosome? Okay. So then, 46 specific words. The serpent, which is also the insignia of the medical industry, okay, of the pharmakeia global medical industry, which was not designed to get at the root of the problem. It's only designed to remove the pain, but not the root that has caused the pain. Okay. So that's why it's called the Centers for Disease Control and not eradication. But 46 chromosomes. So I cannot help but to think, even as a bishop, as a theologian, that 46 specific words that the serpent, that is represents the character of Lucifer, who is Satan the devil, okay? And mind you, the term Satan and the devil are just two psyops that Lucifer is operating in. That's another topic for another day. And even in John, right? In chapter 2 and also chapter 3, it talks about that Jesus says, I can tear down this temple and I will raise it up in 3 days. Well, the Pharisees, they were Sadducees. They came back and said, well, it took our fathers 46 years to build the temple or the anatomy of the temple. You see, so that's China, the contagion of global manipulation. Because when you look at the human body, right, we got what, 380 trillion viruses, 60 trillion pieces of bacteria, 6
In
trillion
everybody?
cells in the body. Yeah. But yet we got people who are dying left and right because of one virus, which may replicate in different strands according to what country it's been planted in. My friend, this has been a powerful
Yeah.
broadcast today. And that's my conclusion of China,
There we
the
go.
contagion
All right.
of global manipulation. Yes.
Well, thank you, Bishop. Excellent. And yeah, we are a bit over time. Just in closing, something else that I think that we really need to know more about, and I'm so glad that you introduced this doctor, what's her name? Teresa Tam. Very interesting.
Yes.
I did not know that she was a public health official with the Canadian government, and she's obviously Chinese born and connected to some other relevant things. I'm interested what, if any, connection exists between Dr. Tam and this researcher Xianggu Kui, who was escorted out of the Winnipeg Level 4 Bioresearch Lab and has herself been to Wuhan, China. So
Yes.
interesting pieces of the puzzle being put together there, Bishop. I really appreciate that. And I want to remind people that they can support the Bishop and the global revolution, the global spiritual revolution, by going to paypal.me/GSRR Media Group and making a financial contribution People can also listen to the Bishop on liferadionj.com/Gaiters. You can hear him on Thursdays from 7 to 9. And people can also subscribe to the Bishop's YouTube channel by going onto YouTube and searching for Global Spiritual Revolution Radio. Bishop, thanks for joining me again for another great show. A lot of people still looking for answers to unanswered questions about this pandemic and global lockdown. We'll see everybody next week. I'll be back later today. I have some surprises in store, but don't forget, everybody, tonight we've got another sponsor exclusive show with the editor of TruePundit.com. We've got Mike Moore with More Pain tonight at 8 p.m. Don't miss that. Join us on Patreon and Subscribe Star. Thanks for watching, everybody.
Thanks, Jason.